knows this is a dangerous time. In fact, you know, we probably shouldn't have been doing this, with the numbers, but it's so important that we do this so that we can hear from our applicants and make the decision that the council does need to make in a very open, transparent manner. I need to also thank Benny Martinez for the microphones. He's done an outstanding job to be able to communicate with the citizens and dialogue this morning. And I also need to thank James Lee from the Helotes Echo. He is streaming this on the Helotes Echo YouTube, and then it is going to then loop around into our city's Facebook page. So if people are at home, email your questions to s.pass@leonvalleytexas.gov or any of the council members. I think a couple of them have their computers as well. Again, I just want to issue, we're only going to be here for 2 hours. I just feel really compelled that we need to communicate in dialogue in a civilized, dignified manner, which we will do, but we need to also be cognizant of the virus, and we don't, they say not to be indoors, you know, with more than 10 people, and we're doing that. So anyway, but thank you. If you feel uncomfortable, you can certainly leave, and I won't, I certainly understand that. Okay, we're going to follow the rules, the basic rules of our decorum. There are cards at the tables, so if you have any questions for the applicants, write them down, and somebody will pick them up and then take them to the counselor's table, and then they'll put them in categories so that we can ask those questions. But let me tell you what the basic outline of the workshop will be. We're going to start with Elaine Valdez, who's, and I set the applicants on how they apply. So Elaine was the first one, and Mr. Moffett was the last one in the week and a half. So we put them in the order of their application received. So we'll start with a 3 to 5 minute opening. And I do thank Ivana Roskin, she's my timekeeper. And Yvonne has a paper that's green that says you have a minute left, and then a red paper that says stop, okay? So that we can keep on track, and thank you for that. And then, after that, we will go to questions by the mayor and council to each applicant. And so if we start with Elaine for opening statement, then the next question will go to Ms. Sines. And so everybody will have a chance to answer the question first, and then we'll kind of loop back around, okay? And depending on the time, if we have time for a 1 minute closing, we will do that. But again, we want to be trying to be finished here by 11, okay? So, is there anything else I've missed? Oops. Yes, please turn off your cell phones if you can do that, so that we're not. And I hope y'all don't mind, but I've asked the staff to open up the windows again for circulation, okay? So keep your coats on, but I hope you'll understand. I don't want this to be a spreading event, right? And it won't be, because we're going to be really, really, really careful. Okay, but James Lee told me today, and I guess I'll share with you, he's been at many Northside Independent School District basketball games, and everything's been fine. It's been 500 people in the gym, and so I feel certain we can pull this off today. Okay, so let the dialogue begin. Looking forward to learning a lot from each and every one of you. And the council will make a decision on the 2 candidates who will fill the position until May of 2021 at the December 15th, 2020 council meeting. Okay? Well, with that said, it's now approximately 6 minutes after 9. Ms. Valdez, if you'll please begin with your opening statement. And again, they each have a microphone at their place, but we've also got wipies. So if you'll wipe off the microphone after each use, we'd appreciate that. So, thank you, and you may begin, and welcome.
Okay. Well, good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
And to the councilors, and to the residents of Leon Valley. My name is Elaine Valdez. I want to see Leon Valley be a progressive, respected model city in Texas. I feel that I have the vision, energy, passion and personal qualities to work together with the people, the councilors, the mayor, and city staff to achieve this goal. I'm impressed with the work of the new councilors, diving right into city business. I too am ready to take the plunge. Due to COVID-19, the UTSA swimming pool is closed, so my swim coaching duties are now on hold. My employment with San Antonio Parks and Recreation Department is only during the summer months. So, for now, I can be especially devoted to the responsibilities of being a counselor. As president of Pavona Place Homeowners Association for the past 1.5 years, I've demonstrated good governance, transparency, and ethical behavior. Pavona Place is a microcosm of Leon Valley, consisting of homeowners, renters, persons of different ethnicities, faiths, physical abilities, culture, lifestyles, and values. Regardless of their background or status, I reach out to all. I believe that everyone must be listened to, respected, treated fairly, and feel included in the community. I want to take a leadership role in promoting excellent quality of life in Leon Valley. This means encouraging thoughtful business and economic development, continuing to develop an aesthetically pleasing, modern appearance on Bandera Road, as well as throughout the city, ensuring that all city codes and ordinances are upheld, enhancing our environment with earth-friendly practices, such as described in El Verde 2020, upgrading and reimagining our older city offices, buildings, facilities, our parks, trails, and of course, our swimming pools, so that they are attractive, ADA compliant, and optimally functional. And continuing to use the 6 components of the city's comprehensive master plan as a template for future decisions and progress. Thank you very much for your consideration in my bid for this important position.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And we have Jessica Sines, our second applicant. Ms. Sines, welcome.
you.
And you have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessica Sines. My husband, John, and I and my family are new to Leon Valley. We've been residents for just a little over a year, maybe a year and a half. We've been familiar with Leon Valley a little longer. We purchased some property here and had to go through the permits department, and John and I got to know the people there very well, and we've just been so grateful to all of them. We had some, people gave us advice when we moved or we purchased our property here in Leon Valley. We always heard negative things, but I kid you not, we have only been met with the sweetest people at the city. The director of permits, the girls working in the office, the officers that greeted us there. I mean, everyone has been amazing. And everyone helped us really well every step of the way. We could not have done it without Leon Valley. Policies, the strict nature of the inspector. I mean, he was amazing. So yeah, we've turned our opinion around of Leon Valley based off of our personal experiences with everyone, and we're super thankful for everyone. So my husband and I, we have 2 young boys. We built a home with a mother-in-law suite to move in my parents. They are retired as of last year, and it has been the best decision. Granted, we have to referee some things sometimes when my boys get too loud and my parents need quiet. So we monitor them, and we tell them they cannot go to grandma and grandpa's unless they're invited over. But understanding where my mom and dad are coming from and being able to have the opportunity to have them live with us and just understand what their needs are at this stage in their life has been a blessing to us. Our kids learn a lot from my parents. My parents are teaching them agriculture. We garden year-round. My boys are infatuated with it, with bugs and animals and the deer and everything that's around. So we've been very fortunate to have that opportunity with my family, my parents, and my kids. I'm a part-time worker. I have a part-time job. I work from home. I've always had the luxury of being able to work from home since we've had our children. And we also homeschool our kids. We had one semester with our oldest in kindergarten, and then we decided, why not homeschool? We have the opportunity, we're able to do so, and John and I have been in agreement ever since. So our boys really thrive on learning outside. They loved, up until COVID, loved coming to the library. We take advantage of everything that Leon Valley has to offer. We love to shop local. We love to support local businesses here. Definitely something that we're teaching our kids. Our kids, when we take walks in our neighborhood, we live in Monte Robles. When we take walks, we take trash bags. The boys hate picking up trash, but it's part of their responsibility and they understand that. They also know about earning money, so we have to throw that in there sometimes. But I'm really thankful for this opportunity. I look forward to working with the new city council. I'm excited about all the positivity that we see. We've been met with nothing but great neighbors, great friends, just people in general. Getting to read everyone's application was really inspiring. I loved seeing all the diversity that's applied here, and I mean, it makes me proud, you know, that people have a love for the city, that everyone is interested, that everybody has goals for our city. I think that's really important, and I think it says a lot about all of us that are sitting up here today. And yeah, that's basically why I'm here, and I just thank you for the opportunity to share how I feel, my thoughts, and thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Simons. We appreciate it. And next is, we'll right off the microphone. Next is applicant Evan Bowl. Mr. Bowl, you have up to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. My name again is Evan Bowl. I'm just about to hit Big 3-0 in February. Most of that life has been spent here in Leon Valley. Growing up, seeing how Leon Valley has changed over the decades, seeing it grow progressively, modernize, contemporize, and look forward to being more business friendly than it has been in years past, ensuring that in the future businesses can come here with more glee than we could possibly handle. Because what I think is when we have more businesses than we have space for them, that is a true mark of a great city. But that's just a small facet. As an entrepreneur, I know what it's like to run a business, to run multiple businesses of multiple industries. And it takes a listener, not just a doer, to really see the nooks and crannies of an operation, whether that be a landscaping business, whether it be a security company, whether it be financial services, whether it be a restaurant or a city, because a city is just like any other corporation. And we have to really look at our staff, the people we are essentially in charge of, but also at those who are in charge of us, and give thanks to, appreciate, and show that appreciation when it is due, and it is always due. Over the past 16 years, I've been involved in my community in one form or another. I've been either a liaison between groups across Bear County, or I was an organization head for 2 years at any given point. I spent time in the city of San Antonio as the advocate for the animal rights rescue groups, which number in the hundreds here in Bear County. And everywhere I go, I'm always a voice for those who don't have the strength or the will to voice their opinions. I bring the ethics to their opinions. I research what their concerns are. I see, does it conflict with law? Does it conflict with our Constitution? Does it conflict with any other matter that goes before a court? To ensure that when I'm speaking, there can be no legal ramifications to it. And that is what we've strayed from in this city over the past few years. And I'm hoping to bring that back as the individual who can keep the citizens at the top of that organizational chart. The citizens have their opinions, and sometimes they do not have all the facts, but rather than chastise them, we need to be a leader in the community, letting them know that their concerns are valid, but we need to also give them the information to make wholesome decisions and opinions. And just like everyone up here, we're all neighbors. We're all citizens at some point. We're also going to be leaders in our community. And going forward, I think that is what we need most here, as we're in a time that is the most important for Leon Valley, changing with society. And there needs to be a clear perspective on that council that knows just how to do that. Thank y'all. And again, my name is Evan Bull, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Bull. Appreciate it. Yes, Robin Johnson, you're next, and you have up to 5 minutes, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm Robin Johnson. I have lived in Leon Valley for 21 years. My husband is retired military, and this is our home. Both of us were born here. I spent most of my youth in San Antonio. My father's assignments, he was also military. Every other one was back here in San Antonio. So I grew up hearing about Leon Valley. I grew up hearing about the Leon Valley Police Department and how you didn't want to speed through Leon Valley.
Right.
I grew up hearing about the closeness of the community. When we retired and we had the opportunity to choose where we were going to live for once in our lives, we chose Leon Valley. During our time in the service, I spent most of my time working a part-time position for myself, doing tech work, taking care of my 2 children and my husband, and volunteering in the military community. I volunteered both in what is called Family Services, which is an organization for the military that serves the military to help them with their many moves, helps them when there is a natural disaster, or as in the case of returning military personnel from a war zone, assisting them to get the services they need and reconnecting them with their families. So that I have been doing since I was a teenager. Every assignment we had, I was on a board or organization that, again, assisted our military members, because I could not work outside the home on a continual basis and raise my 2 children the way we wanted them raised. So I have been involved in community organizations for more than half of my life. I view Leon Valley not so much as a community organization, but as an organization, a city that is part of and very important to the life of my family. And I want that city to be a city that everyone in the city can be proud of. Once my children were out of school, I went to work for a multi-million-dollar corporation and ended up as their supervising officer for 9 years. After that time frame, I opened my own business until I retired 7 years ago. So I have the experience both in community and in the professional, handling information that flows in, how to control it, how to communicate that information to other people. I'd like to take the opportunity to serve on the council. I have been involved with some of what's gone on in the city over the last 18 months. I'd like to be part of the solution now. I'd like to see every single one of our citizens represented, making sure that the council members are open to what every citizen is saying, because we have such a diverse group of people in this city. Not everybody is always going to agree. And if they don't agree, then we have to find a way to compromise. So I look forward to the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. Really appreciate it. Next is Bill Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, you have up to 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mayor and Council, and citizens of Leon Valley. I too appreciate this opportunity to come forward and express my desire to serve the citizens of Leon Valley. I feel I have the current knowledge of what's going on, and I have the background to be immediately effective if I were to be selected as a council person. When we were stationed in Omaha, Nebraska, I was elected president of the neighborhood association, the Deer Park Neighborhood Association, which represented 33,000 people. And in that capacity, I had to work with the Omaha City Planning Board, Zoning Board, and City Council, as well as with the state legislature and the governor of the state of Nebraska. I was involved in a process where over 30% of the properties in our neighborhood were rezoned because they hadn't been zoned for 60 years, and the zoning codes were rewritten, and all the properties were reviewed, and as I said, 30% were rezoned. I had to represent the members of my neighborhood association in that rezoning process with the Planning and Zoning Board and ultimately the City Council. One of the things that got me involved was the fact that the state was going to redo Interstate 80, which came very close to our home. And their plans for that were going to isolate our neighborhood completely from the interstate system. One of the reasons we bought that home was because we had instant access. Well, in under 5 minutes we could be at highway speed, north, south, east, or west. We worked on that issue, had a petition campaign that secured over 6,000 signatures in 6 weeks. And eventually the governor came down to our neighborhood and made her recommendation that the design of the interchange near our home would be redone. And in that process, committed the state to something they hadn't done for 50 years. When they first brought the interstate through, they promised our neighborhood a community park, which never got the funding or the attention it needed, and it was an eyesore in the neighborhood. When everything was said and done, we had a redesign of the interstate to support the businesses and to support the residents. And we had a beautiful park that enhanced the neighborhood. I was also involved in several other positive things. We got sponsorship by businesses and by the city to have a massive cleanup in the area. At no cost, large dumpsters were brought in and teams were organized to help the senior citizens that didn't have the strength or the ability to do it, to clean out all the junk and get rid of all the stuff that they didn't need. And it was extremely successful. But I also, as I said, had to work with the planning board, the zoning board, and the city council on many occasions. And I had a wonderful staff of 9 that supported me and my wife. And I think I bring to the fore the ability to immediately address the issues that are critical here and work for the citizens of Leon Valley and for the city of Leon Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Next is Jed Hefner. Mr. Hefner, welcome, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Well, oh, that's loud. Oh, you guys weren't sleeping, were you? You know, there was a wildly popular Broadway musical called Hamilton. Came out a few years ago. I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's a great line where General Washington, after the war is done, tells Hamilton, winning is easy, governing is hard. In preparing for this morning, I think that's the thing that came to mind and reminded me of it's easy to go through an election cycle. It's easy to win a campaign. The work of government is hard because exactly what many of these other candidates have talked about. It's hard because there are so many different opinions. There are so many divergent views. And it's hard to compromise. But I think when I think of our government and our system of government, what makes it great, it's that when it functions properly, the pieces of government have their own checks and balances. They have their own accountability. And, that is a big part, I think, of what has hampered locally and nationally our politics. But another part of it is, many of the people that have been elected have not looked to the people to say, how can I serve you? It's been, how can I do what I want? When I think about leadership, I think about being a servant, about putting others first. And, the environment we have in Leon Valley makes me sad. My wife and I moved here a little over 5 years ago. And when we live on a little cul-de-sac off of Seneca Road on Sundial Street. And going up and down our street during the campaign season, we saw different signs. Different people had different things in their yards. What I loved about our little cul-de-sac, just a little microcosm of our city, was that my wife and I could walk up and down the street and see any one of our neighborhood, and they were our neighbors, regardless of who was voting for who or how that shook out. And I think that that's something that's been lost and needs to come back. How do we do that? A big part of it's what many of these other folks have talked about. Listen to one another, talk to one another, seek to understand one another. So a little bit about my background. I've been a servant leader most of my life. At 17, I joined the Marine Corps in 2001. Was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. That led me, to a couple of different places, and it led me to learn about a man named Pat Tillman. If you guys know who Pat Tillman was, he was a football player in the NFL. And in 2004, he was killed in Afghanistan. He left the lucrative football field to serve others. So in 2009, I was actually selected to be a Tillman Scholar by a foundation that his widow set up that sought people around the country who wanted to serve. And that has been an inspiration to me. Pat's legacy. Wow, that's fast. I talk a lot. So, I'd love to tell you guys more about that. But, I think this city council needs someone who's going to be able to listen to all and compromise. Earlier, I guess, was it last year or the year before, I had an opportunity during kind of some of this turmoil when we had a divided council to work on the animal ordinance and was able to build some consensus, talk to a lot of different parties, and I'd like to continue that work. That's the work of government. It's hard, it takes time, it's not sexy, but that's what needs to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. We appreciate it. Next is David Edwards.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm David Edwards. I am interested in returning to serve on the council. I was a councilman for 2 terms and lost by 1 vote a few months ago. And that result, I believe, largely threw the city into turmoil. I would like to come back and try to help undo a lot of the negative events that have occurred in our community over the last 18 months or 2 years. And I believe since I served on the council for 2 terms, I have an understanding of how the process works. We have been through a very difficult election, and now there's a chance to have a united council that can straighten out some of the issues that have occurred. One of the things that I think is really important is for us to return to the idea that the citizens are our bosses. And when the citizens vote and put somebody on the council, we need to honor that. Instead, what has happened is through the use of the Home Rule Charter, certain staff members in the city have used that charter to attack their political enemies along with their allies on the city council. We need to take a real careful look at the Home Rule Charter. I am not committed to keeping it. I think there has been little positive that's come from it. It has been used to attack political enemies in our city. Also, this virus that we've been, situation been thrown into, we need to use any funds that we receive from the county or the state or the federal government to help the citizens and our businesses first. Because that's what keeps the city going, and that's what the focus should be. We also need to take a look at what has happened over the last couple of years, where some city staff have become involved in city politics. We need to take a look at trying to do something about that, so that the city staff, and I'm not saying all city staff, some city staff needs to stay out of politics. That should be between the people running for office and the citizens. And the citizens need to decide who should be on the council. I've lived here in Leon Valley for about 16 years. Many of you know me. I'm a psychologist, and it's kind of funny. maybe not that funny, but about 5 years ago when I started campaigning to unseat an individual that was on the council, I went door to door and people asked me for a little bit of information about my background. And I said, well, I'm a psychologist, and many people said, you're going to need your own psychologist after this. And I laughed. I thought, that's funny. But actually, probably it was pretty accurate. So I would just like to offer myself to the community with the idea that I have experience. I have a background in mental health and running a small business, and I would like to make myself available to try to help this community recover from the trauma that we've been through for the last 18 months or longer. We need to stop using the mechanisms of government to attack our political opponents. We need to totally reassess the Home Rule Charter and many of the structures of our government. So thank you for listening to me. Appreciate it.
There we go. Thank you, Dr. Edwards. We appreciate it. And we have Ty Chumley. He's our next applicant. And Mr. Chumley, you have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You're welcome.
It's working here. Hello.
There
Sorry,
we go.
guys. Well, I appreciate having me here today. My name is Ty Chumley, and believe it or not, I think I might actually have lived in Leo Valley the longest than everybody running today. My family moved here when I was 6 months old, and so they thankfully moved back to Leon Valley. But my parents have been very involved in the community since they moved here. My dad was an ag teacher at O'Connor High School, but he started at John Marshall, and they moved all the ag program to O'Connor, so he's been around the community a long time. My mom has been elected to 6 terms in the Northside School Board, so definitely have grown up seeing how important Leon Valley is to the community, as well as, how important it is to really get involved. My background is, I'm actually a professor of agriculture at Palo Alto College. I'm the dean, so I run their agriculture and the horticulture programs out there. And I see today that many of our students have kind of given up on politics. And, a lot of our younger generations that, they're tired. They're tired of Trump, they're tired of Biden, and they kind of thrown in the white flag. And I think it's important that we really kind of get our younger generation involved in Leon Valley, our younger families. I live on Huebner Road, 6431, so my house is almost, I tell everybody I live on the dead end of Huebner. And so, I really, we're seeing younger families move into town. I moved back here about 5 years ago. I went to Texas A&M University, where I was an animal science graduate. And, many times, A&M, you got people from all over the country. And you ask people, where are you from? You hear Helotes, you hear Alma Heights, but you never hear Leon Valley. I think a lot of times, with the Helotes Echo and Alma Heights has their own thing, and people really kind of get involved. They kind of take ownership of, say, I'm from Alma Heights, I'm from Helotes. They don't say San Antonio. Many times in Leon Valley, people say, I'm from San Antonio. So I really want to kind of get back to the, have some pride about Leon Valley. Have some kind of buy-in that I'm a Leon Valley resident. Being, growing up here and kind of seeing how we've all developed. And, I went to Oak Hills Terrace Elementary School, then I went to Patton F Middle School, and so seeing that growth and kind of being part of this community this long has really helped me to really realize, how important it is to be a Leon Valley citizen, not just a San Antonio citizen. And I think, one thing that I regret now is that I got really involved in San Antonio. I'm part of the San Antonio Stock Show board. I'm very involved in the Farm Bureau Board of Directors. I've done quite a few things in terms of politics and in terms of, I helped with bag commissioners races across Texas, but I never really took that step here in my hometown. So I think it's important that people realize, Leon Valley is a city. Leon Valley's got great people and great community, and I want to get back to that community. And I think that's important that we all understand that. And I know, if you Google Leon Valley, you get these crazy news articles lately and all this other stuff. We want to change that. We want to make sure that, it's a positive direction. I think we're headed in a positive direction. I've been to the past couple of city council meetings, and I think everybody's really kind of has that goal. And I want to be part of that growth. I know this is only a 6-month, position, but if I was selected, I want to continue, and we'll run again in May as well, because I think, the future is very, very bright here in our valley, and I'm very glad to be resident for 36 years. And so I think it's important that we give back to our community and that we work with one another to find, really maintain those goals and stick to our mission. So I won't be real long. Aggie's playing 11, so I'll be quick and easy.
Thank you, Mr. Tony. We appreciate your input. Last but not least, Eric Mata. You have up to 5 minutes, sir. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Eric Mata and Eric Mata. Many of you guys know me here, and I don't know, I might have you beat. My parents moved here in '77, but who knows? Yeah. So pretty much grew up here playing in the parks and the creeks and the woods, building tree houses. I have fond memories as a little kid before they filled in the pond back here of going to some fishing competitions with my father. I think that was probably late 70s, early 80s before they built the works back here. But anyways, you know, over the course of my life living here and then going away for college and living overseas, I never imagined I'd return here to raise a family. I am divorced now, have a 12-year-old daughter, and I think over the course of the last 2 years or so, I would have never imagined that I'd find myself as involved as I have been, passionately troubled with some of the governance that we saw over the last 2 years or so. And that's kind of the elephant in the room here, and we still have a lot of work to do in reforming this city and healing it and restoring government back to a neutral, central point where all opinions are respected, all views are respected, and the idea of differing is not met with an idea of removing those who differ with you, or in any way accusing or targeting those who disagree with you in government. We've also seen that citizens have been the target by elected officials, not currently, and that was also very troubling. I've personally been a victim of that as well. I know others in this room have as well. And I just, you know, that's a very sad thing about where we're at. And I hope to bring that passion for change and reform that's needed at this point. You know, I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that this 5 or 6 month term, that in any way the citizens of Leon Valley at large have played a role in picking me or any of the other applicants here. I don't see myself as having put myself out, you know, for that kind of scrutiny over the course of the long term of the election season that we dealt with. But I will say that I was very involved with candidates that did prevail, and was a big part of the recall process and ensuring that took place, and we brought necessary reform. And I was very active over the course of these 20 months on social media, at council meetings. I was here at the polls for almost a month, working the polls daily. And I think I have a really good reading on the concerns of the community at this point. And so these 5 months that I look to or hope to possibly serve is all about keeping that at the forefront of my mind. These concerns that I heard from citizens, from new friends that I made throughout this process. And I hope that I can contribute to bringing about the necessary change and assisting the current council, mayor, and staff with these healthy changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. All right, so it's 9:46, and if those of you that are here in the conference center, our residents, if you have any questions, if you want to pass them forward to the counselor's table, they'll start gathering the questions. I'd like to start with the first question and then go to my colleagues and ask them if they have any specific questions, and everybody will answer the same question, but again, we'll round robin it to where everybody gets a chance of answering the question first. And this next round will be up to 2 minutes, and it's now 9:45 till 10. And so we try to finish at 11. So I think we'll have plenty of time for, a good number of questions. So, and some of you did touch on this, but I had already written out my questions. So let me give and Ms. Sines, you'll start first. What did the results of the November 2020 election say to you as an applicant? And what will be your priority if appointed to serve?
Thank you for the question. I'm assuming you mean locally.
Oh, definitely locally. It's all Leon Valley today. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we won't tell you.
Yeah, not the national. Yes, ma'am.
Personally, I feel that the outcome was a good one. I supported the recall. If elected, I believe what I would start with is just getting to know my community, getting to know city workers, city officials, putting myself out there. Like I said before, I've only been here living a resident for a year and a half. I did get to know a lot of city officials at City Hall 2 years prior. It took us 2 years to build our home from beginning to end. So with that time, like I said before, getting to work with some of these people, they're amazing. The wealth of knowledge that you have there is amazing. We couldn't have done it without them. But I think that would probably be my first step. It's just getting to know people, letting people get to know me, how I function, how my family functions, and that's where I would start.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Bowl, you have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. What this election told me was that, like working the many elections I've had over the past 10 years, is that who is elected is all based on the tactics of perception and what wins out, factually or otherwise. But thankfully we had another component to our elections this cycle, and that was our charter amendments. And looking at how that information was given to our community in the various forms it was, and then watching the results of each amendment come through from A to CC, we had all but 2 pass. And the 2 that didn't pass, well, we all kind of knew that might be the situation. But we had almost 2.5 to 1 vote in favor of all the charter amendments, because I believe inevitably it's about the bones of our community, our governance. The charter is our constitution. It is what we use to govern ourselves and how we as a city council and a city operation run. And the community spoke to how they want us to be, which is more accountable and more transparent. So really, who sits on the council wasn't what I was looking at. It was what the community viewed on how our city should be running ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Robin Johnson, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
What the election results showed me was that the citizens of Leon Valley were ready for new blood on the council. With the replacement of one counselor running for re-election and the vote to place the second candidate in the seat, it also showed that they were tired of what had become the status quo, which was no response, little response, or negative response from City Hall to citizens' concerns. Our City Hall had stopped listening to our citizens, and the citizens were tired of it. We had quite a few people that stood up and said, enough's enough. And there's a lot of differing opinions about whether accurate information was given to the citizens, whether they understood the information as it was given out. I also worked here at the polls talking to people and had a lot of people who did have misinformation when they came in. Had some items clarified, and the vote showed that the citizens were ready to go back to the old Leon Valley, that they were ready to have a change in our city government. Whether that change will be something that will carry into the future is for our elected councilors to determine.
Okay. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Mr. Bill Johnson, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
First, I'd like to request a different seating assignment. Sitting next to a self-avowed Marine is chilling. No, seriously, thank you for your service. The results, the November 3rd election spoke volumes about what the city wanted, what the citizens of this great city wanted. They said, we want a change, we want a change of direction, we want a council that listens to us, we want a council that addresses our issues and our concerns. And that's what needs to be done now, is to be open, to hear their inputs, to work with them to resolve differences, and to make the city better by being proactive on things that need to be done. So, thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Hefner, up to 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
So I'm a data guy. I work in tech for my day job. And so I'm a big proponent of data-driven decisions. And when I look at the data from the November 3rd election, by any modern election standard, it was a landslide for the changing council positions. I think one position was like 70 to 30, one position was like 66 to 34, or something like that. So by all modern election measures, that's a landslide. From a governance perspective, that would indicate a mandate from the citizenry. And the thing that was different also about this particular election, being that it was a presidential election, was voter turnout was massive. We've seen past elections, the election when the Home Rule Charter was passed had a very low turnout. The election when Dr. Edwards was lost by 1 vote, that was a very, very low turnout election. This election had over 4,000 of our 11,000 citizens vote. And by all data-driven metrics, that was the outcome. And is really a mandate. If I were appointed, my priority, I think, would be to restore the proper function of government. I think a big part of that is each section of government has its own responsibilities. And when one branch of government cedes that responsibility to another, so if the legislative cedes to the executive, or the judicial cedes to the legislative, those responsibilities and those checks and balances are designed so that no one piece of government can form a tyranny over the citizen. So I think that would be my priority, would be to restore the proper role of government.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Nick, Dr. Edwards, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Okay, I worked, campaigned in this last election to try to get 2 council people recalled, and I campaigned against the one sitting city councilwoman. It seems really clear to me that the citizens of Leon Valley have had enough and they want our city to return to a form of government where there's a balance between the city council and the city manager and chief of police. That was made really evident by the results, as the other gentleman has said. It was a resounding message that the citizens are the bosses of the elected officials, and the city council should work in combination with the city staff to take care of the basics of governance, the streets, neighborhoods, make it business friendly, again in Leon Valley, as much as possible. So that's what I saw. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Next is Ty Chumley. Mr. Chumley, you have up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Ann. I think just one word is energized. I think, one quick Google search of Leon Valley before the election, and, you saw negative things. You saw, abuses of power. You saw some things where, not good things about Leon Valley. So I think with the new leadership and the people that were elected, along with recalls, I think easily said energized. That's why I'm here today. I think we can work well together in kind of putting Leon Valley back on the path that I think, for the be the most prosperous and what the people of Leon Valley want. So I think that's really important to see as we continue to grow. And then I think that this new council can work together without all the bickering and all the drama, and work towards a goal that that Leon Valley as a city needs going forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mata, up to 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. As I spoke about in my opening statement, there's no doubt the election was a referendum on the behavior and activity of the previous council, and moving forward, I hope that we can continue keeping our eye on the prize and not let go of these goals that we're seeking to accomplish here. The abuse of power was so tangible over the course of the last 2 years. It was shocking, really, and I feel confident moving forward here that we have individuals of integrity that are committed to bringing transparency, true transparency, and respecting the checks and balances that should have always been there along the way. Let's not kid ourselves, we've also had high-level staff play a big role in blurring these lines of responsibility between these branches, as Mr. Hefner spoke to a bit ago. And we need to continue dealing with that, with high-level staff that has made it their mission to subvert the will of the citizens of Leon Valley. And we do have wonderful staff here that have a servant attitude, but unfortunately, in high-level positions, we see that we have some self-serving staff as well that colluded with the previous council. So I think the citizens saw that pretty clearly, and no doubt moving forward, my role would be to absolutely continue that reform that we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to go to my colleagues. Oh, that's right. Hello. I was not going to forget you, Ms. Valdez. Thank you. You bet. Your last but not least, you have up to 2 minutes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, what the results of the election say to me is that the citizens are saying we care about Leon Valley, and we want change, and we want to get back to the business of running the city and not getting caught up in politics and personal issues. In light of the outcome of the election, my priority would be to come to city council meetings prepared. That means doing my homework, understanding more and more about learning from the past, and learning also about when we have new issues and decisions to make, that I get all the facts and come prepared for the meeting Also, my priority is to demonstrate that I'm approachable, I listen, I'm honest, I have integrity, and that whatever we do, that the council does, that the perception is that we're above board and have total transparency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you ending that first round of questions. So I do have two questions, but I wanted to be sure that the counselor, my colleagues, do you have any specific questions for the candidates first? And then we have two questions. If there's no other questions, we have two other questions. I think we'll be able to get to it. It's only about 3 minutes after 10. So Mayor Pro Tem Bradshaw, if you'll begin, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Talking to it? Yeah. First of all, thank you all for coming and putting yourself out there. I know it's not easy and kind of be under the microscope. One of you already had mentioned it, but I'm curious of those of you who are applying, to fill this position, kind of a stopgap for 6 months or 5.5 months, whatever it ends up being. Are you just applying to fill the 6 months position? Are you planning to run again in May when the election's up? Or are you going to decide that you're going to kind of a trial thing and see if you like it? So kind of leave it open that way. Just what is your intention?
All right, very good. Your intention for the term of the yes, we'll start with Mr. Bowl. He's first, and I promise I won't leave out Ms. Valdez or Ms. Sines this time. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you,
Up to 2
Councilman.
minutes.
Thank you, Councilman Bradshaw, for that question. It originally, the intent wasn't to be sitting here today, but obviously, with the great voice of the community, mountains get moved. And in fact, it was primarily the voices outside of our community that have been moving this whole nearly 2 years kind of mountain that we've been dealing with. And so, if appointed to this position for the remaining unexpired term of 6 months, I would consider running for that position in the May election, because I do believe that as a councilman in place 1 or 3, that I would be a very good councilman, an example of what I believe that the people of Leon Valley do want based on what they have voted for recently, going back what they've stated to me and to the community and to others in our city government. And so, yes, I believe it would be a consideration. It's not something that's in stone so far, but it is a consideration I'm undertaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Johnson, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
When I filled out the application, my intent was to serve on the council if I was selected for 6 months, do the hard things that needed to be done to get our city back on track, to get it back to listening to our citizens, to following through. At this point in time, that is still my intent. Will that change? I don't know. Until I have been on the council and actually seen if I can make a difference. I may at some point decide that at the May election to run for the seat I'm appointed for. But at this point, I have no intention of doing so. So I am not concerned about making the hard decisions, because I don't have that in my mindset for the future, that I have to be able to rerun.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Council Bradshaw and council, I have no intention whatsoever of pursuing a seat in the May election. I'm here now. I'm up to speed. I know a lot of things that need to be done. There's a lot of hard decisions and a lot of hard work that need to be done in the near term, and I'm willing to step up and do that. But I have no desire to continue as a council person after the 6-month period. I want to get the ship righted and headed in the right direction, and then leave it for other people to carry on. So, thank you for the question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Heckman, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I want to rewind back to last year when I spent some time working with the previous council on animal ordinance. I actually really enjoyed the aspect of crafting legislation, of crafting those ordinances, of working with the various stakeholders. I enjoyed that a lot. Back in February of this year, I know it seems like a long time ago, the world has definitely turned upside down since then. I remember on Valentine's Day sitting around our dining room table with my wife, praying about whether or not I would file to run in this past May, which then became this past November's election. Ultimately, we decided on Valentine's night, that was our date night, that it wasn't the right time for our family for that to be something to do. I think people talk about May. The reality is the filing deadline for the May election is in February. So that decision is made about 2 months from now. My intent would be to, if selected by the council, to serve. The reason why I first considered it in the first place was because I had many people from many different places ask me. It's like when I get a book recommendation, if I just get a book recommendation from one person, I'm like, okay, it'll go on my stack. If I get a book recommendation from 3 or 4 people, it jumps to the top of my stack. So, when multiple people asked me if I would run, that was why I considered it last year. So yeah, I would consider it, but I also recognize that anyone appointed to this position doesn't have the mandate from the voters that the elected councilmen do. So I would think it'd be important to seek that mandate. So my position would be whatever legislation and work for the city that I would work on in the interim between now and February to May would be the work that I would stand on come next May.
Okay. Thank you very much. Hello, Dr. Edwards, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
If appointed, my inclination is to just serve until May. I won't say that I couldn't change my mind, but that's my strong inclination. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chumley, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Like I kind of mentioned when I was talking earlier, I plan to, continue. I think this is a long-term goal. I think, 6 months, definitely get the ball rolling. But I think, in terms of my goals and, the future I see for the city, that, I will be running again.
Thank you very much. Mr. McMotta, up to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, thinking back to a year ago, I had friends and fellow citizens here in Leon Valley that encouraged me to run. And ultimately, I decided against that. My daughter is my priority, and decided that was more important than anything. And so the idea of filling these 6 months, I don't think I'd feel comfortable using it as a launching pad into a future term. So at this point, I would not be running for election in May. Just to serve out these 5-6 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valdez, you're next. And you have up to 2 minutes. Thank you.
That's a great question. I guess I'm unsure. A lot has happened in the past few months that have brought me to this position that maybe a year ago I never dreamt I would be in this chair talking to all of you. So this is somewhat of a trial period, but also I'm not going to is very open, so I do have energy continue this service. It suits me and also suits the city's needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Science, you're last. You have up to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you for the question. I too, like Elaine, didn't see myself sitting here, but had the opportunity to fill out the application, and I did. And I'm not sure if I would run in May. That would definitely be up to people, my family, the current city council. If anyone felt that I did do good work, then I would consider it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So are there any other questions from my colleagues? If you'll, Councilor Stevens, I believe you have one. If you'll please ask it, and then we'll go around. And we'll start with Ms. Johnson first.
This one is real soft. I wanted to preface this by saying, and I just posted online as well, one of the important parts of this process is to get feedback from citizens on who you think is the best candidate. So there's 2 ways that you could really do that. You can email us, the whole council, and let us know that way. You could also email us your phone number, and we can call you back if you don't feel comfortable writing your comments, because they're subject to the Texas Public Information Act, just like everything. Or you could also call the city at 684-1391, extension 210, which I posted on the YouTube stream for the Lotus Echo, and leave a voice message on that, and that can get forwarded to us. So that being said, I have kind of a loaded question, but it's around one central concept. So here we go. Section 6.011 of the Texas Government Code enables a home rule municipality to revert back to the general law form of government upon a 2/3 vote of the governing body. Many citizens have acknowledged to me that many of the charter amendments are at face value unconstitutional and only increase the ability for a toxic environment and reduce accountability by the governing body. Some examples are a change preventing city council from, quote, encroaching on the city manager, preventing accountability, and there's another one that prevents the mayor from having a bias. Not expressing a bias, but having a bias. What are your thoughts on returning to general law, and how is the governing body to restore accountability and prevent future weaponization of the home rule charter if it remains the constitution of our city?
Okay, thank you very much. That is a loaded question. Okay. Robin Johnson, you're first. Thank you. Up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Councilor Stevens. You don't pull punches. As far as the charter goes, I voted against the charter when it was on the ballot initially because I saw the dangers in the way the charter was written. Unfortunately, what I saw has been happening. As far as the council being able to repeal the charter, what I think concerning the charter itself, it needs to be repealed. We need to get back to a balance. We need to get rid of the weapon that is there. I would have no trouble with the councilors removing the charter with the understanding that there would be at the next election, something put on the ballots to allow the citizens to say, we want to go back to a charter. Fixing the charter requires rewriting it from front to back. It's not going to be a short process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
I have a different perspective than most people here as I served on the Charter Review Committee. And from day one, that committee was stacked. Many of the votes were 7-6. And so the amendments that were presented to the voters were not well explained, and they were not a overwhelming choice in many cases of those that were on the Charter Review Committee. Having had the charter amended, we are prohibited by law from changing it for 2 years. Now, whether that is effective for the supposed election in May, or whether it is a 2 years starts in November, is something no case law has had. Also, there is no case law about the section of the Texas State Constitution that says we can return to General Law A at any time by a simple vote of the council. No one has ever done that. It's been researched and researched and researched. There is no precedent for that. I am very much in favor of returning to general law and starting over with a blank slate for a charter, a new charter for the city. There are advantages to having a home rule charter, but it has to be carefully crafted so that it does not become a weapon against political opponents. Thank you for the question. It's a very good question, but I have very strong feelings on that.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Hefner, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please, sir.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one, right? So we passed the home rule charter. Basically, every piece of legislation that has gone before the council in the last couple of years, since 2017, has been by ordinance, allowed by the charter. So it would require a lot of research, a lot of investigation, a lot of work to understand the impacts of reverting to a general rule city, as Mr. Johnson mentioned. It's never been done before, so it wouldn't be something to take on lightly. That said, the ideals of a home rule charter are sound. Right? The ideal is the closer you can bring responsibility to the citizens, to the people, the closer to democracy we are. Right? And under a general rule city, we would be limited only to what the state government allows us to do. Whereas there are, at times issues that face Leon Valley specifically that need a local understanding to be able to handle appropriately. That said, we've seen the ideals. We know what the ideals are. We've also seen the negative of what can happen when those ideals aren't lived up to. And I think that goes back to having people who are servant leaders in positions of authority, having the ability to allow the governing documents, as Mr. Bowl said, the home rule charter would be our constitution for our city. Let those governing documents decide the limits of power for the individual parties. So I wouldn't be opposed to returning to general rule. I would be very clear that it is a massive undertaking, and you'd be setting precedent at the state level to do it.
Thank you very much for those comments. Dr. Edwards, you have up to 2 minutes, please.
If we can vote to return to general law, I'm in favor of that. This home rule charter was weaponized as a political instrument against enemies of high-level city employees, and it resulted in the removal of a city councilman for no reason. It resulted in threats towards the city councilman, and the mayor has got to go. If we can vote it out, I'm all for it. And Leon Valley is pretty good at setting precedents, so that's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chumley, up to 2 minutes, please, for this question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I 100% agree with the repeal of the home rule charter. I think that's what kind of put us down the slippery slope in the first place. And that's another reason, like I said, I will be running again in May, because I think it's going to take some time to get rid of it. But I believe that it needs to be taken care of and removed as soon as possible.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mata, up to 2 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you. Yes, I echo some of the sentiments of Mr. Johnson. I also served on the Home Rule Charter Committee and was extremely troubled by the direction that committee took this potential to amend the charter There was members of that committee that were closely aligned with the city manager. It was clear that they had an agenda, and that was to further strengthen the charter to be weaponized for the future. And we clearly saw them continue, I shouldn't say them, but the previous council majority along with staff, over the course of the last year or more, we saw them, that they were not deterred. They removed an elected official the summer of 2019, and if they had it their way, they would have removed 2 more elected officials. It was very clear to me and other citizens that it was another example, potential examples of abuse of power using the Home Rule Charter, and in my opinion, it does not provide, as it stands, the proper checks and balances that we need moving forward. I think there's a reason that general law has worked for so long for many communities, and it's sad that our community has kind of negatively blazed the way for, as an example for how to really misuse a charter. And I shouldn't say the city, it's certain elected officials in the previous council along with staff. And again, as I say, moving forward, this is a necessary step in order to heal and reform the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valdez, you have up to 2 minutes to answer the question.
Okay, and it's only been recently that I've been educating myself about the differences between general law and the home rule law. And I know that all cities that once they reach 5,000 residents change from general law to home rule charter. And we're certainly over 5,000 residents. Clearly, there's been problems with our current home rule charter, but I believe that perhaps re-looking at it, recrafting it carefully to mitigate future problems that we've had, learn from the problems of the past, and then recraft it so that we have more safeties and more checks and balances. That would be my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sines, your response to the question, up to 2 minutes.
I too voted against the charter. I felt at the time that it was misleadingly stated on the ballot. It was very hard to understand. As a matter of fact, I had to, my husband and I sat down with my mom and dad because they had a copy of the sample ballot. And they had a lot of questions regarding those, and we had to research ourselves because we didn't understand. So a lot of the same sentiment here. If the council wanted to revert back to general law, I would totally support it. I definitely believe as public workers, we have to be, there has to be accountability, there has to be openness. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bowl, you have up to 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Councilor Stevens, for that question. Let me first start out by saying that over 700 communities here in Texas no longer have general law for some of the same reasons that have been mentioned today, about how one operates general law to home rule charter. Thirdly, it was the citizens that voted for the home rule charter. It would be extremely irresponsible to remove the home rule charter by council vote. The amendments we just passed were passed by the citizens of Leon Valley. And it is on every citizen, it is the responsibility of every citizen to do their research or find someone who has done the research to be able to learn what it is you're voting on. That's a civic duty that we are all bound to. So it may have been confusing. It's a constitution, it is a law, it's a legalese contract. So yes, it is confusing, but with the Home Rule Charter Committee, which citizens sit on, that allows the citizens to start having a voice in what amendments go to the rest of the community, for the rest of the citizens to choose how they want their city government to run itself. And so I would not be in favor of repealing it. That is very irresponsible, and In doing so, you have to start do an audit of all ordinances passed through the home rule charter. And so I share a sentiment of Mr. Hefner, but I am not in favor of going back to general law. It will harm the city more than it will help us due to the short-term concerns we've been dealing with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Are there any other questions from the councilors? Yes, Councilor Roscoe. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much for applying. You're not going to make our jobs easier, and you've given us some great answers. I have some very simple ones, and so I'm just going to go with another one. What is it that you would do for businesses in Leon Valley, and what would you do to attract businesses in Leon Valley? And how do you think that the Bandera Road project will affect that?
Thank you very much. We're going to start this round of questioning with Mr. Bill Johnson. You have up to 2 minutes.
Boy, Councilman Roscoe, that one is loaded. The Bandera Road project is going to be a long time coming. The mayor's own words were probably 20 years. But my feelings on how to support businesses in Leon Valley, I think I made rather clear at the last city council meeting. We need to tell businesses that we have standards, we have rules, we have ordinances, but we're not against negotiating with them and listening to them to identify their concerns and coming to a consensus that allows, I don't want to say spot zoning because that's not what it is, but allows waivers to exist for valid reasons. We should be promoting those people who are willing to come in and invest, in that particular case, $4 million in Leon Valley, and assisting them after they have given so much in the give and take with the Planning and Zoning Commission. We should be able to give them certain considerations that are meritorious for their particular situation. It's not a blanket, this is the rule, by gosh, we're going to follow it come hell or high water. It should be, we need to consider what's being offered here, and we need to be open to talking to persons that are willing to invest their livelihood here in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hefner, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councilor Roscoe. I think that there's a lot that can be done to attract business. One that was mentioned at the recent council meeting about Google Fiber. Huge opportunity to bring in infrastructure. Not just bring in infrastructure, but not do it on the taxpayer dime. I'm a big believer that private business is always going to come up with a better solution than government. Government often gets in the way and stymies innovation. And so I would do everything I could to reduce the regulatory environment, to take barriers out of the way for businesses coming in. I think about Google Fiber as kind of one of those secondary and tertiary impacts that can be had, right? You bring in incredibly fast, world-leading internet speeds that attracts businesses, right? The opposite is true when we're the only part of our city that everybody surrounding us has those speeds. It creates a disincentive for business to come here because there's a negative impact when they don't have those services that are available elsewhere. I think about the role of citizens. Like if I want to run an Airbnb in my home right now, I can't do that, right? I can't rent my house out. When I go to Indiana next week to visit family for Christmas, you go to a wedding, if I wanted to rent my home to someone who wanted to come to SeaWorld or Six Flags, I can't do that. That would bring in tax revenue to our city, but it would also allow citizens to do things that with their own private property that they want to do. Right now, they can't do that because of the regulations we have in place. I think we should send a signal that we're open for investment, open for business, and that private investment is hugely beneficial. And if as a city council we can provide incentives to bring in private investment, I would much rather see private dollars invested for a return in our community than see government saying we need to raise your taxes, take more of your money so that we can do it less efficiently than private business did.
Next is Dr. Edwards. You have up to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. While I was on the council, we were faced with this issue of what's going to become the Leon Valley as we transition with Bandera Road, whether it's going to become a boulevard concept or what's going to happen with it. And the idea that some of us had was that we needed to get staff on board that had been through a transition like this and knew how to manage it. Well, I was in the minority, it didn't happen, but I still think it's a good idea because it's going to take 10 to 20 years, as Mr. Johnson said, and in the meantime, we just can't sit back and hope things are okay in the meantime. I agree with Mr. Hefner with the idea of, simplifying the process of setting up a business. And I think there's some possibility we need to really relook at what happened with the Economic Development Corporation and that change and where that revenue went and how it, in my opinion, it kind of became a slush fund for certain staff members to use it as they pleased. I think we need to really think about restructuring that and having somebody on board with the city who could reach out and try to recruit businesses, the kind of businesses that are, would alter the footprint of the city, colleges and IT corporations and, that sort of thing. So those are my ideas. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chumley, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please, sir.
Well, I think, the big thing is that, we need to realize that businesses in the valley, they're partners with us. I think the camaraderie and, working together is so important, and to build those type of relationships. I think, the private business is so important. It makes Leon Valley what it is. For instance, the new Texas crab boil place down Edwards Road. I want to go check that place out. I don't have to go 281 or 604 to get some good crab boil. Something like that is, what makes us a very small, kind of, connected community. So I think, taking the boundaries out of, private businesses and giving them, bringing them to Leon Valley, and, kind of showing that camaraderie and being together, whether it be, parade, just kind of showing off, our industries is very important in helping to build back that trust, as well as build that camaraderie that the city is really in dire need of. And so I think, the more we can do, especially right now with everything going on with the COVID restrictions and things like that, the more we can do to bring in business and kind of help these businesses succeed is very, very important to the constituents of the valley, but also the city council kind of leading that charge. So I think it's very important that we work hard to bring in business and, help those businesses get through this very tough time.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mata, you're next. Up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. I sat through the council meeting this past Thursday, bewildered at an agenda item that came up about a new car wash. One of our staff members who was in charge of zoning spent nearly 40 minutes campaigning the council about certain aspects of this development. And it really brought to light the concerns that I've heard over the past 2 years from restaurants, pool supplies stores, the aquarium. The aquarium, I have wonderful memories of taking my daughter there since she was about 3 years old. We had a tradition of going there every Thursday or Friday after school. And so it's really sad to see how they've been hassled left and right. And I know there's some lofty goals about the vision we have for Leon Valley and how we'd hope it to be as far as the type of businesses we attract, or whether that be institutions of higher learning, whatever it might be. But at the same time, when we look at Leon Valley, and for someone who's lived here many years, it's in a sad state. I mean, Bandera Road is embarrassing. We have so many vacant, unmaintained property. And at the same time, we have to ask ourselves, why are we making it unattractive for a car wash to come develop and beautify a piece of property that's been sitting vacant for a couple of years here. It's an eyesore. So I think it's really important that we reduce the role the government has in overregulating these businesses. I mean, it's time to stand up for businesses here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Ms. Valdez, you're next for up to 2 minutes on the question.
I also observed the meeting with Mr. White with his proposal for Super Suds business, and I was really impressed with how much he's been, wanting to comply with our directions, but also voicing his concerns and what his needs are, and that this has been back and forth balance to work things out. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to compromise, work things out, and when there are situations where there's special considerations, that we, bend a little bit and compromise and say, okay, we'll go with that. Because we don't want to discourage this man. Yeah, he's putting, $4 million into this project, and it's certainly going to be one way to create some beautification. He's planting trees and whatnot. I think also we have to promote those businesses that are already here through different modalities, and also maybe re-looking at some of our zoning designations that maybe are too restrictive and not allowing for flexibility to promote business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Sines, you're next, up to 2 minutes on the question. Vendor.
Thank you so much for that question. It's a great question. I know my house build wasn't a business build, but we came against a couple of things that were very minute, and we couldn't understand why those things were even in place. For example, in our neighborhood, we have no sidewalks. We were required to pay for a sidewalk permit. It was over $100, and that could easily be a deterrent for someone else really not wanting to put up with, as I've heard the statement before, not really wanting to put up with Leon Valley. That's just a small example. Again, not a business, but a personal build. My husband and I have been very fortunate to meet some business owners here from very small businesses. One woman that we spoke to in general who owns a business here, and I won't name the business, Spanish speaking, I speak fluent Spanish. She had come to, I'm not sure if it was a city council meeting, but she stated she wanted to place a flower bed in front of her business because she's got a lot of concrete. She was not allowed to, and that totally turned her off. And I feel like if we remain positive, we remain open, we can't say, hey, we want you to bring your business here, but we've got a bunch of rules first. We definitely need to change that, and I agree with a lot of the statements that have already been made in being personable, being open to these new businesses, and maybe not regulating them so much.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Bolt, you're next.
Thank you. So what we have, the sustainability overlay plan that we currently have, is the result of decades of mismanagement and lack of vision for businesses in Leon Valley, of how we wanted our city to be business-wise. Lack of enforcement, lack of cooperation, or misdirected or excessive enforcement, as it were. And so the council came up with what they could. And yes, responsible regulation is always a must. Also, cooperation over enforcement, but maintaining the same outcome is always key. And so I'd be looking at this, in fact, as it was mentioned this past meeting regarding Mr. White. We had a new designation come before the city council. And so I thank Mr. Milan for explaining, granted it took us 40+ minutes. It was a new designation that everyone needed to learn. He explained it decently well. And we went through the nuances. I think, signage committee that is trying to put together this new ordinance of signs that's going to affect businesses. It's about looking forward versus maintaining our old mindsets. The old mindsets is what hurting business. The lack of vision is what's hurting businesses. And so looking forward and moving forward and getting out of that zone of old mindset is what really is going to help our businesses and bring them to Leon Valley. So looking at the regulations, looking forward, and not saying we should pull back our regulations, because regulations are important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Robin Johnson, you're next. Last 2 minutes. Last question for you.
Getting businesses to come to Leon Valley in the past years has been difficult. Part of that is because Leon Valley Code Department is not willing, or has not been willing, to compromise. If it's on paper, if it's in the code, it stands, period. And that means that individual, independent companies can't do the things they need to do to make their business presentable or acceptable to clients. So we need compromise with the codes. We have codes for a reason, but that doesn't mean variances and waivers can't be given. We need currently to take care of the businesses we have. We do have code enforcement. There's been a lot of lack of it, and now there's over-enforcement. And one of the things that is of concern is, during this last election cycle, was hearing from businesses that they were getting code information from organizations inside the government who had no business trying to enforce code information. Having police officers come in and say, you have to do this because you're violating code. Well, I understand some of the code is covered by the police department, but there's a procedure that needs to be followed. So getting businesses and becoming business friendly requires cooperation, enforcement properly of the codes, and not having multiple different definitions in the codes. We have in different places where different things are specified. It needs to be codified.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have 2 questions from our citizens, and I want to ask both of them, but I want you to choose, if you have enough time to answer both, fine, or you want to just choose one to answer, that would be all right, but I want to honor the citizens and thank you for submitting these 2 questions. And this will be our last question, and we'll pretty well finish close to 11, and if the panel agrees, we'll give you 1 minute. We might go a little bit over 1 minute closing. So the first question, besides fixing the governance problems at City Hall, what are your priorities for the city? That's the first one. And the next one is anything you would recommend to change first. You talk about change. So if you want to answer both or just one, it's up to you. But I did want to honor the citizens and thank you for those questions. So we're going to start with Mr. Hefner, you're first. And thank you very much, up to 2 minutes.
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Mayor. First, besides fixing governance of our city, how our city operates, I think Mr. Russell's question was on spot, right? Attracting businesses is, Bandera Road corridor is where we get a ton of our tax revenue that allows the government to do things for our citizens, to have various amenities. So I think making things easier for businesses would probably be top priority in my opinion. I think Dr. Edwards mentioned the Economic Development Commission. So I was on that board as an alternate back in 2016, I think it was, before it was basically dissolved, right? At that point in time, I think we hired a economic development coordinator or like a paid position. That was their permanent responsibility, and that person lasted for like 6 months or 8 months or so. I think my priority would be taking a focus on what we can do to improve the business environment, because that's going to trickle down to the citizens. And my first change there would be to look at, much of the regulation we have that I think is unnecessary and overreaching.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Edwards, you're next for up to 2 minutes, please.
As I said previously, I think we need to really take a look at how we can better manage this transition on Bandera Road to retain the businesses that we have and to also try to recruit new businesses. And also, as Mr. Hefner said, I agree with this, to streamline the process of being able to set up a business. So those are the things that I think are very important, and those are the things that I would push for. Other than that, I think there was an attempt a few years ago to try to bring in businesses such as Trader Joe's, is that the right name? But we were told by upper echelon city staff, well, Leon Valley just doesn't have the demographics to support that. And so they made no attempt to even approach that business. And I think we need to, kind of have an open mind about what kind of businesses we want to bring into the city. So those are my ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chumley, you're next for 2 minutes, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I think, kind of, I mentioned when my opening or whatever earlier, is build that kind of camaraderie, that pride in Leon Valley. People when you say they're from San Antonio, they're from Leon Valley. And I think when you do that and you build that kind of camaraderie among the citizens, it's going to transfer, and the businesses are going to kind of see that, and they're going to want to come to Leon Valley. They're going to kind of feel that, that small town feel that, hey, we are Leon Valley, we're a Leon Valley resident, we're a Leon Valley private business. And I think as we build that camaraderie and get things going in the right direction, like I think we are, I think as we can do that, the community and the business will kind of come together in the sense of we are Leon Valley sense, and really work towards that kind of end goal. So I think as much we can do is kind of build the camaraderie and building the pride here in the city. That'll be a big part of moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Mata, up to 2 minutes, please, sir, for the question.
Yeah, what I would say is we're still very much in a phase of rebuilding or reform here, and we have a lot of work to do here. I think the vision that the elected officials that we currently have is sound and solid, and I think as appointees we need to support that. Again, not going to fool myself into thinking I was elected if I do serve in this position. So I'm not saying I would necessarily defer to them, but through the relationship I build in serving, I'd ensure that that the voice and the vision of the people is carried forward. And so, one of the big concerns is just reminding, I think, hate to bring it up, and I know it's a bit in the past, but reminding high-level staff from here on out that it's we the people. This is our city, and we should take pride, as Mr. Chumley just brought up. We are invested in this town, and we should see fit that our interests are served by staff. And we need to be clear from here on out that we expect them to serve in their position, not for their self-interest, or for the interest of the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valdez, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please.
Well, the city councilors already have jumped into a lot of different topics, and I applaud them for that, and I'm ready to step in and follow their lead, and definitely working with businesses, recruiting new business is a priority. Of course, that's where our revenue is, and I feel like big projects like the new business proposal, the car wash, can also then attract more businesses. Wow, look what Mr. White just did over there. We want to be down the road or in that area. So I think it can grow that way. So definitely business oriented.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Science, you're next for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. So what I believe would be a priority for Leon Valley, if appointed, We definitely, I said it in the beginning, definitely work together as a team, getting to know each other so that we can work well together. We definitely need to show unity so that we become inviting. Inviting as a community for people to voice opinion for our already existing citizens. Also inviting as a city to attract new business and new home ownership as well.
Thank you. Mr. Bull, you're next. Up to 2 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, citizens, for those 2 questions. It wasn't said before, but I do sit on the Parks Commission. And as a landscaper, it's a pretty good commission to sit on when you have the eye for beautification. The priorities that I would deal with, because fixing governance would open the eyes and bring the organic growth of businesses and helping businesses. So trying to not beat a dead horse or oversaturate one matter, my priority would be to increase civic engagement throughout the city. There are whole neighborhoods who are disenfranchised, who aren't reached, and who do not vote. The city essentially is decided by only a handful of neighborhoods, by 4, last I count. My change would be to move and show the citizens that we have a history. We at the City Council talk about a lush history, but no one really knows it. And as someone who studied history, who loves history, and is going to want to join our historical society to keep it going, I think what we should, as a council, put together something like a Founders Day event every year, once a year, every single year, to remind people that we are a unique city. We have our history, it is rich, it is quaint, and they should take pride in it. It's about pride, it's about that camaraderie, and it is about knowing where you came from so you know where to go from where you're at. That would be the change I make, and the priority would be civic engagement, because everything we talk about today, going forward, doesn't matter if the citizens don't know what we're talking about. And it's they who make the decisions for us through their vote, so they need to know.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Really appreciate it. And Mrs. Robin Johnson, you're next. 2 minutes, please.
I think that the things that need to be looked at and handled as far as priorities is overregulation that we have in this city, both in our businesses and in our working with the citizens. Cost for things that the neighborhood doesn't have. Enforcing things that shouldn't even be there. That needs to be taken care of. There needs to be more encouragement to get citizens themselves involved through committees and other activities. We have a lot of citizens involved, but if you look at a lot of the committees, it's the same citizens on every committee. Or, you know, we need new blood in that. And it's up to the council to make sure citizens know not only are they encouraged, they're welcome, they're wanted. The city needs to return to a balance. And that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. That's a change that has to be done. How do we get there? I think repeal of the charter is the first step.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson? Up to 2 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Excellent questions. I'm going to be straightforward and blunt. To encourage businesses, I think that we need a serious revisit of the sustainability overlay. There are a lot of what I consider issues in the SO that are prohibitive for businesses to overcome. And I think that while the initial concept was great, having it written down and being that's the law, that's what we're going to do, is the wrong thing. I think we need to look at what is going on and what's written in the SO and reflect as to whether that's the direction you really wanted to go in when that was set up. It's been a number of years. It needs a serious revisit. The second issue that is very important, I think, is to address the home rule charter. I think it needs to go. It will be a momentous step. It will be a historic step, and it will be unprecedented in the state of Texas. But we are restricted by law from doing anything with it for 2 years. We need to remove it, and we need to go back and rewrite it so that we can represent it to the citizens at a date sooner than 2 years from now. And those would be two of my top priorities if I were selected to serve the citizens.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Okay, it's about 10:58, and I do want to give an opportunity, 1 minute, for all of our applicants to give a 1-minute closing statement, and then after that we will adjourn. So thank you. It's been a real enlightening workshop. I've really learned a lot from each and every one of you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for putting your name into the hat for consideration. So with that said, we're going to start with Dr. Edwards, going back in our line of succession, and then we'll end with Mr. Hefner. So Dr. Edwards, 1 minute.
Thanks to everyone who has come out and met with us today. I appreciate the opportunity to be considered by the council members for possible appointment. And I would just appreciate the opportunity to follow through on some of the issues that I had worked on the other council toward. And I think that really the key element during the next 5 or 6 months is to finish dealing with the governance issues, looking at our government from A to Z and figuring out what we need to change if we need to make some changes. I also agree with eliminating the home rule charter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chumley, you're next. 1 minute, please.
Like I said earlier, hopefully y'all saw my application and kind of get a gist of kind of what I'm all about. But I think we're moving in a positive direction, and I want to be part of that. I think not only just a 6-month term if I'm selected, but I want to move forward in the future with Leon Valley in terms of growing our businesses. Growing camaraderie we talked about, being proud of being part of Leon Valley, and I think that's a big step in the right direction. So. If I am selected, I plan to be there for the foreseeable future.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mata, 1 minute, please. Closing statement.
Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to say how proud I am of those that recently won election. Proud of those citizens that I worked together with over the course of the months to really right a lot of wrongs that we've seen over the last 2 years. It's inspiring to see the courage of those that stood in the face of tyranny and fought for what was right. This is what it is to be an American, and I hope we uphold those ideals as we move forward here and remember who is our boss. It's the people. And whether I'm chosen to serve or not, my sense of servitude here moving forward will continue, whether it's in government or helping the community, the elderly, and thank you for the inspiration, everyone.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Mrs. Valdez, you're next. 1 minute closing, please.
Thank you for listening to me and all of the candidates. I heard from everyone today. I realize that I'm surrounded by people who are genuinely committed to serving our community. All of us are capable of continuing to do great things in Leon Valley. My record shows I have set goals and I get things done. I have one question. It was announced at the City Council meeting on November 17th that all of our current councilors are proud dog owners. If I'm appointed to City Council, do I have to adopt a dog too?
I don't have a dog. 1 minute for you.
Thank you guys for giving all of us the opportunity to speak from our heart today. I would love to have the opportunity to sit with you to help you, that's basically what we're here for, help you to help our community. I appreciate all the answers that were given here today. You have some really smart people here. I really look up to a lot of you guys, oh, actually all of you. You all have really good points and stuff, and I'm just excited to learn and just to be of service. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bull, 1 minute closing, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I think me sitting here today, showing up to council meetings every other Tuesday, I'm the embodiment of some of the sentiments that we share tonight. Fresh blood, young blood, knowledgeable blood. Discussed tonight that unfortunately some people still think backwards when we just had an election. Take the data that we have from that election and we should be moving forward. Tonight, all of my answers, all of my sentiments have always been centered around what the citizens say, what the majority say, and how they vote. I've seen through my own personal experiences as a business owner, as a consumer, some of the problems, and taking those problems as a solution-oriented individual. I do not complain. I bring a problem to the table and follow it up with a solution. So I greatly appreciate y'all's
Thank you, Mr.
consideration.
Appreciate that. Reverend Johnson, 1 minute closing statement, please, ma'am.
I appreciate the opportunity that's been presented. I've been involved over the last 2 years with what's going on here in Leon Valley. Whether I am selected for one of the 2 positions or not, I am not backing away. I will still be involved. I'm not going into the woodwork and going to disappear. I do have one question though. Which one of you is willing to give up your dog? Because I love them all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bill Johnson, 1 minute closing, please. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Bradshaw, you heard it from her. If she doesn't steal Luke, I will. When I decided to put my name in the hat for these 2 positions, I wrote down a list of things issues that I felt needed to be addressed. It was 23 different issues. Some of them are already being addressed. I've spoken on a couple of them here tonight, but one of the ones that's in the forefront is openness and transparency, which this forum shows that the council is dedicated to. We need to let the citizens know what is going on and what the thinking is behind what's going on, and let them have their inputs. So I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your consideration for selecting me.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Heffernan, your last 1 minute closing, please, sir.
Yeah, so I got good news for you guys. You can't make a bad choice. Like, the fact that you have 9 people up here who are engaged, informed, passionate about our city, no matter who you choose, you can't make a bad choice. The great thing that Mr. Johnson mentioned is you guys are doing this in a transparent way. You're welcoming robust debate about issues that people passionately care about. So I would give those who are here, those who are watching online, you have homework. You guys have to tell your counselors your opinions, your feedback, who the best candidate here is, and allow them to select for you, and then you'll have another opportunity in a few months to go to the ballot box. But at the end of the day, our city, I think, is in good hands. You guys don't have a bad choice to make, and the outcome will be nothing but, I think, positive direction for our city.
Very good, thank you. Let's join me in a couple of things. Thanking our 9 applicants. Let's do that first. Thank you all so much. Y'all did an outstanding job. And also special thanks to James Lee at the Hello Niseko for streaming this event, and Maribel Mendoza for putting it on Facebook and helping set up, and the fire department, police department, Crystal and Sandra, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And Mr. Martinez for the microphones too. Okay, thank you very much for giving back some of your Saturday. So thank you so much. It was great. And again, we look forward to seeing y'all on November the 15th, where the council will make that decision. I agree with you. Did I say December 15th?
Mayor.
December 15th.
Mayor, you have an item.
Oh, I have citizens be heard. If there's any other citizens that want to be heard. That's true. Thank you. I added that, but I wasn't sure. Okay. Yes, Mr. Sines, go right ahead. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Hang on just a second. I forgot citizens be heard. Thank you. That's why I have Sandra. Yes, sir.
Is it good?
That's good.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? All right, I'm going to talk into it. I just want to say thank you to the police department and the fire department for keeping our community safe. We know there are troubled times right now, everything that's going on in the national news, but at least on behalf of Leon Valley, I know I can speak for most of us. Thank you so much for your hard work and dedication. I know that there was an accident maybe a couple months ago where a couple of the police officers were injured. I know that we read that and we see that and we hurt because of that. I know a lot of us have family and friends that are in the fire or police departments. I know we do appreciate you. We also appreciate your sacrifice to country, those of you who serve, and your sacrifice to the community, because we know that you put your lives on the line every day, and just really, really appreciate that. So I just wanted to give you a shout out. Thank you so much.
Very good. That's good sentiment. We all support that. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no other citizens to be heard and no objection, we move to adjourn this special workshop on December 5th at approximately 10 minutes after 11. Have a good weekend. Great. Thank you all very much, and thanks to everyone.
So